Hey loves, thank you so much for joining me today. In this Vistara embodiment episode, we're gonna talk about dark feminine and how it has been historically greatly misunderstood. And this topic is so vast. There are so many layers to it, and I'll try to make it as concise as possible. But when it comes to feminine embodiment and reclamation, there is so much we have to go into to really unravel the story, unravel to understand what it is that we're reclaiming, what it is the essence of the feminine. That I have created Vistara Feminine Embodiment School and 6 months immersive path, because it's not just something that we can dive into in 40 minutes or 30 minutes talk and come to understanding and clearing it. So I will include the link below if you're interested to looking into it a little bit deeper, diving a bit deeper into feminine mysteries. But today, let's start from the space of about 3,000 years ago. Actually, it's even less, it's about 2,000 years ago. So prior to organized religion, and especially monotheistic religion, where we have a singular male god figure, so that would be Christianity, Judaism, and Islam. Prior to that order, which is a completely new order of religion and new establishment institution as such, and it's new, it's only 2,000 years old. Prior to it, for as far as the record goes, at least 50,000 years, we collectively across the globe, no matter what region, what part of the world, what culture, we collectively worshipped and honored God as a mother and as a father. So there was feminine and masculine always. We always had across all of the continents, all of the different cultures, we had God and we had goddess. And we didn't just have a God as a father and as a mother. We had these various archetypes of God and goddess as a warrior, warrioress, as a sacred lover, as a wild man, wild woman, as a mystic, a shaman, and sorcerer, medicine woman, medicine man, all of these different aspects of consciousness, of divine consciousness. So with the establishment of monotheistic religion, new order was presented to the world and actually pushed and forced upon the world to eradicate the feminine aspect of consciousness, feminine aspect of God. Why? And that's when we know one of the darkest parts in human history took place, the witch hunts and inquisitions that lasted for 500 years. And up to, this is not even a top figure. Nobody knows how many women were killed, but around 7 million women were brutally persecuted in those witch hunts and inquisitions to eradicate earth-based worship and consciousness and connection to that goddess consciousness that lives within the body, that lives within the consciousness of the earth, that we have direct contact with and connection to. It's a part of who we are. It's our divine inheritance. Instead, we have been conditioned and programmed to believe that we are separate and God exist outside of the body, exist outside of the earth, exist outside of the matter, which is everything physical. Matter comes from Latin word, the root of which is mother. So we became disconnected, forced to disconnect from the mother, the one that gives birth to all life. Every biological form on this planet comes through the woman body of the mother, of feminine. So instead, God became a singular masculine figure that gave birth to a woman and to a world. So why twist it in that way? Why totally change the order? Well, it is my belief, and as well in many mystical schools, that it is due to fearing so greatly the power of the feminine, the power of the creatrix. You see, when we start now exploring feminine from the aspects of consciousness, versus we will take feminine and masculine, so it gives us a bit of a framework to work with and to understand a little bit better. We can see how very different those aspects of consciousness are. Masculine is almost like a stillness, constant, non-moving. It's like an observer consciousness, that stillness itself, it's a container, and it's a very linear, it's very in a place of body, it's a linear, logical sort of thinking. It's very much how we're gonna get from A to Z. There is a strategy, there is a focus, there is a step-by-step process. It's very cognitive and logical. So when we think of the feminine from the aspects of the energy and consciousness, it's completely opposite. It's the energy, it's the move, it's the flow, it's the creation itself. So I like how Sabrina Lane describes that in the example of weather. So she's saying, if you think of the atmosphere, and atmosphere itself, it's a masculine, is that container, then the weather and all of the expressions of weather and how changeable it is, from rain to rainbows to sunshine, and then back to clouds and storm and hail and snow, tornadoes, tsunamis, all of it, all of the expressions of it. This is feminine. And when it comes to how it expresses itself within the body, then it's non-linear. It's the consciousness of flow, receptivity, emotional intelligence, sensuality, it's intuition, it's the wisdom that doesn't arise from the rational cognitive mind, is the wisdom that arises from deep within, from the body, is that deep inner knowing. It's a primal aspect of consciousness. So here, what I've learned so far and got to understand through my own journey is that feminine became so greatly feared and misunderstood due to its nature of impermanence, nature of change, nature that you can't grasp or rationally explain or understand. Men will often have a sayings like, we can't understand a woman, there is no sometimes logic and a sort of formula to how things work. The feminine is impermanent, it's constantly changing. Our nature is cyclical. And when we start attuning to our monthly cycle, when we start working with our cycle, it's becoming so clear how we every month move through death and rebirth. Death and rebirth. Every month when we bleed, when we shed, we are called to go back inwards, so deep into ourselves, and kind of it's like gravitational pull into the earth. We used to bleed directly on the earth, into the earth. So we're like pulled gravitationally so deep into our body, and we are called to shed the parts of us that aren't serving any longer, the grief, emotions, feelings that are stuck, that is suppressed, that are accumulated in the body. They need to be released, and the parts of us that aren't serving any longer, that we outgrown, they need to die. So it's a process of total death of parts of us that we've outgrown now. They're not serving. And from that place of that deep inner shedding, and quite often women feel so emotional, so low. We can feel like we're really down, we're almost depressed in that part. But that's when we call to really go inward, to minimize how we spread our energy thin and not run everywhere, and really tend to the inner world, to ourselves, to allow that process to take place. And then from that place, it's our inner winter. So it's like after winter comes spring. Then the new seeds start to grow, new things starts to come to the surface, the things that we haven't seen within us before, the new ideas, the new inspirations, new actions. So this is the part of the feminine that is death and rebirth. And here I'll take us back again to the consciousness of the goddess. So in all of the cultures across the world, we revered, we honored the goddess as the one that gives birth, as the symbol of fertility, of life itself. We honored the sacredness of body, the sacredness of life. She teaches us that body is never separate from spirit. The true union is merging those two, is the embodied living of spirit in the body. It's not a disconnection which our consciousness experiences, have been experiencing for like thousands of years now. This disconnect, that spiritual is somewhere there and body is like this dimension of sort of sin, of form, which is not where spirit resides. It's completely opposite. The divine feminine teaches us that the spirit lives in the body, and the only way to truly connect, to come to so-called state of enlightenment and awakening, is through merging our spirit within the body, and it can only be accessed through the body, not by checking out from the body. So here, when we start working with the feminine and getting to know the goddess, which is all over the India, by the way, the goddess is revered and honored and worshipped everywhere. And again, through all of these various archetypes, one of the very famous ones will be Kali, but there are many, Shakti, Lakshmi, so many, Parvati, so many aspects of feminine consciousness. But Kali will be the one, the dark mother, the dark goddess. And as in Egyptian philosophy and mystery schools, she will be called a Sekhmet. In Gnostic Christianity, prior to the religious order, it would be Inanna and Lilith. And there would be so many different archetypes of the dark goddess. It could be as well, trying to think of them, Hecate in Greek mythology, the mother of witches. So when we start working with feminine, with the goddess, again, we often, when we think of the god or goddess, we think of mother and father figure. Again, that's what's been kind of sold to us and projected upon us. Father God, mother God. So we seeking out this motherly and fatherly figure who's gonna nurture us, hold us, love us, tend to us, because a lot of the time we haven't experienced that within our own constellation of the family. So this is something we long for and want to reach for. But here is the thing, especially with the goddess, when we work with her. She's not just your mother archetype, like I said already before. She's the warrior, she's the sacred lover, she's a mystic, she's a shaman, she's a midwife, she's a sorcerer, she's a priestess. She's so many, and she's a dark goddess. So quite often when you start just getting to know her and meeting her, you will meet a dark goddess. I call her Dark Mother, and she is terrifying. And the first time she came to me, I couldn't bear it. I couldn't be with her, so I had to shut it down, and I had to take my time to then go again into that space and surrender to her, because she will most likely take you into your deepest underworld, your deepest fears. And quite often we think, oh, our deeper fear is to be abandoned, is to be lonely, is to be rejected, is to be, I don't know, shamed, is to be this, is to be that. But beneath that, there is that almost like primordial fear of death, of non-existence. There is a fear of losing our mind. For women especially, fear of madness, insanity. Even if we don't know and not aware of it, this is what becomes clear when we start working with her. She will take us into these spaces of our deepest fears, specifically that fear of death. Even if we don't think we have one, we all do, trust me. Why? Well, because this is the nature of life. This is the nature of her domain, matter, mother, earth, life, body. It's a cycle. She's this cycle of sex, gestation, birth, nourishment, nurturing, sustaining life, and devouring life. So you have to meet that. And it's only in that space of full acceptance that this is what life is. And it is sacred. It's not supposed to be something we can understand with our mind. It's forever meant to be a mystery. And when we surrender into that, trying not to grasp it, but surrender into her mystery, into her domain, into her creation, that's when the other aspect of that divine grace, love, beauty, innocence is revealed to us. And she starts flowing as this bliss, erotic energy through our body. She can be directly felt through the body. Quite often, body starts moving and swaying, and you feeling like if you're listening to the music, you feeling the music with every cell in your body. Everything moves, and it's not sexual, as it doesn't have connection to needing to have sex, but it's this eros, sensual, beautiful energy of life. And she shows you then what you really are as a feminine, what you are made of, what are your threads, what is your makeup and consciousness, and how incredibly beautiful you are. And then she reveals a power within, the power of womb, the power of creatrix, the power of the body, the wisdom, the sacredness. And it's this, I think, aspect of consciousness of divine feminine that is so terrifying, that this dark goddess, you know, the way she takes you into your darkest places within you, but she does that so love and grace can flow through the parts of you that you can't imagine that grace and love can flow through and exist. But until you surrender to her and get to know her, you will face this really scary aspect of feminine. And I think is that, as a one part of it, what made feminine as a goddess, as an aspect of divine consciousness, so terrifying. The fact that she bursts and she devours, the fact that she's so primal and primordial, the fact that she is complete mystery and total mysticism. And then in feminine body, how that consciousness translates is that we women supposed to be constantly in touch with our body and with our emotions, with our feelings. We meant to feel it all regularly. Historically, women would gather together, either it's on a moon cycle or just as a part of the ceremony and ritual, and do the grief ceremony. They would use the womb space, uterus, as the space to channel not just their individual grief, their trauma, but the collective trauma, what's happening within their tribe, the war consciousness, rape, losing their children, losing their families, unimaginable, unbearable, seeing desecration of their land, displacement. Women would meet together and collectively go into that place of deepest grief, of bearing the unbearable. And you might think, fuck, that's a lot. How is that even possible? And yes, it is a lot. But our bodies, our energetic and spiritual systems designed to do that. Uterus, womb is an alchemist. It can channel unimaginable pain, sorrow, grief, loss, and transmute it and alchemize it. And what happens within that process is that we break the cycle, we break the chain. We don't keep passing that grief, that pain, that loss, that sorrow, that rape consciousness, war consciousness onto next generation. We alchemize it, we neutralize it. And it's from that space of deep grief and releasing it, alchemizing it, that then that energy starts channeled into the new ideas, new seeds, new quantum possibilities are birthed directly through the womb. It's a space of not just birthing biological life, but it is spiritual technology through which women, when they work with their body, when they work with their womb, are able to channel the spirit to become a direct portal, direct vessel and channel for divine feminine to flow through, to burst into the world, into the reality, new quantum codes for new possibilities, new future, new states and ways of being. But again, what historically happened is this huge misunderstanding of feminine, of feminine emotions, of feelings, of how our bodies are designed to deeply feel, to go into the spaces of grief, which feels like mental breakdown. It absolutely terrifies masculine. And what happened historically when they saw women in this state of hysteria because she needs to grieve, because she needs to have space and support and tools and resources and ritual and ceremony and other women around her to go into that place that she is designed to go into. And she wasn't able to do that, especially in the past 3,000 years or even a bit longer. She goes into the space of like mental breakdown. For thousands of years, women were occupying mental hospitals because her emotions, her grief, her loss, her sadness, her trauma is so deeply misunderstood and not honored and not revered, and there is no space for her to be in her expression. So instead, it all becomes completely suppressed until quite often when we just hit perimenopause, menopause, the whole system combusts. We're entering into total death portal when we go towards menopause. And everything that hasn't been addressed, everything that hasn't been released, felt, everything that didn't go through shedding and death is going to come up to the surface. And quite often, because it's so much of it and we haven't worked with it prior to it, it totally overwhelms and like combusts our system. So man came up with the idea, male doctor, that, well, let's remove her womb. Hysterectomy comes from the word hysterical woman. Again, how greatly is feminine misunderstood, rather than understanding that feminine is very uniquely different from masculine. She has a very different relationship with life, with feelings, with emotions, with experiencing everything and feeling everything, and her body is the channel for it all. Just like her body is a channel to gestate, birth, and nurture life. Instead, she's been suppressed emotionally. Feminine emotions are not welcome. How many of you grew up in a family systems where, as a girls, you could openly cry, tantrum, rage, express your feelings, express your emotions, and have the space held for you, and be welcomed, and feel loved, and feel nourished, and feel resourced? And how many experience that? Girls don't do that. Good girls don't behave like that. Put it away. Don't shout. Don't rage. Don't cry. Don't get upset. You know, you either would be punished for it, or you would be dismissed, or they would try to distract you from it and pacify it and numb it. So you just anything, just so you don't go into that space. So no wonder by the time we hit perimenopause and menopause, we can have a mental breakdown. And then the solution for it would be, well, let's remove her womb. The most precious, sacred, spiritually, physically, mentally, emotionally, energetically potent and powerful part of feminine body. And then there is, of course, sensuality and sexuality. Like I said, feminine energy, getting to know the goddess. She lives in our root and sacral chakras. She lives, her seat, I mean, she lives everywhere, but her seat of Kundalini and Shakti is in the cervix and womb. She lives in the yoni. We can experience direct connection with everything, total expanded consciousness, total state of awakening through lovemaking, but not just an ordinary lovemaking the way we know it. It's a very deep state of when we worked with our own spiritual energetic systems and with our own body, when we de-armored our body, when we de-armored our yoni, when we've done enough of body work and inner inquiry work to release any shame, any conditioning and programming, anything that feels and keeps us caged when it comes to our rawest, most wild expression of sensuality and sexuality. When we become free of all of that programming, conditioning, shame, guilt, and objectification, then we can access such deep states of presence in our body, such a deep feeling of sensations that it totally changes our lovemaking from just an ordinary experience, and clitoral orgasm that in comparison to cervical orgasm is just like a sneeze. We can then go into those deep states of cervical orgasms, which lasts for days. Yes, days. And in that space, your consciousness is completely open. You communing with all there is, with God Father, God Mother, and all of the archetypes of spirit, great mystery. It's a total spiritual experience. And again, I believe that because it is something that it's innately feminine, this energy, this aspect of consciousness is innately feminine. It is available to men as well, but women have very specific body biology system and energetic system and spiritual system to connect to this consciousness in this way. We are multi-orgasmic. There is a clitoral orgasm, there is a G-spot orgasm, there is cervical orgasm, and who knows, there might be even more when men predominantly just have sort of one type of orgasm that they know. So this is very unique to women to access spirit in this way. And it's only when man is fully ready and willing to surrender himself to woman, which is incredibly difficult and challenging for man. It's like, because he needs to meet in that process, kind of like a dark mother, you know, and we're talking that's happening in a lovemaking. He needs to surrender into complete unknown, which is terrifying. Then he is able to enter into that field of consciousness. So essentially, feminine is the doorway for man to experience that. And in the ancient mystery schools of worshipping the goddess, there was something called a practice of sacred prostitution, where in the temples of goddess and priestess, there were priestesses highly trained in this alchemy and high tantra art, that they would bring men into that communion with the goddess in that way through lovemaking. It was the sacred ritual. Prostitution wasn't back in the days the word it's got to adopt later. It was a completely different practice, but you know, let's don't go there right now. This is just to touch onto that aspect and why I believe it became so incredibly threatening to men, that level of openness within the feminine, that level of sacredness and mystery. Again, something that's very hard to grasp with the logical and analytical mind, because it's not graspable. It's not something you can begin to comprehend or understand. So again, in order to, when we meet something that is confronting to our ways, how we organize the world and reality, and we can't understand that, the only way we can deal with it sometimes is through control and suppression. And this is exactly what took place and still is. Complete suppression of sensuality and feminine sexuality for thousands of years. And I was so shocked to see recently this post about Afghanistan and what women experiencing right now there under the Taliban leadership. They're not allowed to show even the slither of their eyes any longer. The entire body has to be covered, everything. They're not allowed to go to schools past the 6th grades. They're not allowed to leave home without being accompanied by men. They're not allowed to, obviously it goes without saying, no voting, no any activities that are joy, dance, singing, or anything else. To me, that's just the most unimaginable cruelty, slavery, and actually crime against the feminine. Similar to that crime against the feminine that has been done over the witch hunts and persecutions, where women that were expressive and open and worshipped divinity through the earth, through herbs, through reading of the cards, through midwifery, anything that wasn't in the box of ordinary was deemed a witchcraft. If you were in any way a sorcerer, a shaman, a healer, a reader, priest, let's not even go there, a priestess, any sort of mysticism was deemed as a witchcraft, and you would be burned at stake. So imagine if in our modern day, Qigong masters, breathwork practitioners, yogi teachers, acupuncturists, homeopaths, chiropractors, tarot readers, astrologers, midwives, and so many others were all called witches and burned at stake. Wouldn't that be madness? But this is exactly what happened. And this is still taking place. Like Afghanistan will be a small example of it. And then we still have a female genital circumcision. Mutilation, actually, it's not even a circumcision, it's a mutilation. Which is, again, some people would say, like, but you have that, you have a male circumcision, is very different. Male circumcision is a foreskin. They're not actually chopping the part of your penis, the part that stops you from having pleasure and enjoyment. For females, it's removing clitoris. And that's just the most mild form. Then it goes into complete brutality. Clitoris, inner labia, and the most extreme spaces and places and cases, it's stitching the entire vulva. And it still takes place in many, many countries. And it has been quite a widespread practice, which I was really shocked to discover. And again, it was a male doctor who came up with this idea, and it was a way of controlling feminine pleasure and sensuality, so woman couldn't pleasure herself. How about that? So man can do it, but female couldn't. How about that for controlling the feminine, for fearing the feminine power, her sensuality, her mysticism? And the other thing, I wrote so many things here, but I can see that time is ticking on and I didn't really want to go for much longer than 40 minutes. So I'm just gonna as well access one more space, that when feminine is allowed to freely move through all of the various emotions, even if it's a rage and anger, and sometimes, like my friend works with a different school of diamond heart approach, and they call it dark essence. So even when we deal with something like hate or rage, when there is a space created for it and it can come out, its essence is pure, because the rage and anger and hate can come out with, I am so angry, I am raging, I am so insanely upset. And there is a space to roar, to cry, to wail, to hit, to do whatever you need to do. But when that emotion is not allowed, not permitted, there is no space for it, that becomes distorted, it festers within. And when it does come out, it comes out as an emotional manipulation, as a control, as a aggression, as a projection, as so many various ways, emotional ways, in how, you know, the anger, when it's suppressed, can come out, versus the pure essence of those aspects of ourselves that we label as bad, as dark. You know, this is another part of the dark feminine, is her rage. And how can she not be enraged when you think about the kind of things that still nowadays happen to women? How can we not rage? How can we not roar? How can we not feel the pain through our body for desecration that is still taking place? But when we allow to go there, when we allow to grieve, when we allow to be angry and enraged and express that, from that space we alchemize the energy, and that energy of rage is so powerful that we can then channel it in an aligned, soul-led action. Then the new solutions, new ways come through that. I'm gonna stop here, because otherwise it will just go on for much longer. But if you would like to hear more about specific aspects of what I've touched upon, so I've went into a bit of a journey here, so we would hopefully have a little bit more understanding around feminine and what it means to be in contact with that, what we call dark feminine. And by the way, by dark, by no means do I refer to bad. I just mean is the other side, is the other aspect to love and light that we so like to focus and spiritually bypass the other spectrum, the other side, because there is always two sides. It's dark, it's light, it's day and night. There is a winter and summer. There is a lushness of jungle, and there is absolute emptiness of the desert. So there is death and birth. It's always two spectrum, and one isn't greater than the other. This is the beauty of the feminine that she teaches us. Both are sacred. Both are pure in their most authentic and raw form. So thank you so much for stopping by and listening, and have a wonderful day. I'll put the link below about Vistara Feminine Embodiment School. If you are feeling called to go deep into feminine mysteries, it is 6 months immersive path of emotional healing and reconnection to the sacredness and wisdom of our feminine body and power of our feminine energy. Is the journey of devotional return to self-love, self-worth, our radiance, magnetism, sensuality, pleasure, intuitive wisdom, and direct connection to source energy. And it is for women who are curious and want to go deeper into feminine embodiment, but as well it is for women who are moving through a deep inner processes of, like I call them, death and rebirth, deep rites of passages. And it could be just coming into your womanhood, or it could be having your child, or going through your Saturn return, where your entire world shifts and your whole inner reality rearranges itself, and you feel this complete death of identity, and you don't know who you are on the other side of it yet. Or you're moving through breakdown of your marriage, of separation, or any other big rites of passage moment in your life. This is for you. Thank you so much for stopping by and listening. Please like, share, comment, and subscribe. Check out as well my series of yoga, somatic tantric yoga, Reclaiming Female Pelvis, which is one of the segments of this path of feminine embodiment and reclamation, and it's a doorway into starting to connect to your body. Thank you so much and have a wonderful day.